Hi gang, Rob here. It is the evening of 4 April 2022, coming to you this evening with a US-made knife review, courtesy of Knives Ship Free, the best place to buy knives. And there is promotional consideration paid by Knives Ship Free for this video. They are sort of my co-conspirator in this US-made knife review series, and all knives featured in this series will be provided by Knives Ship Free, with no obligation on my part to give these knives positive reviews, but most of them generally will be, because you guys know by now I gave up doing reviews on knives I hate years ago because it just wasn't productive, let's say. Tonight we feature one from Kershaw, and this knife is the model number 7550 Launch 11. The Launch 11. I guess that means this would be the 11th in a series of launches from Kershaw, and that would be correct. So what is the Launch series of knives? Well, it is an ongoing series of automatic knives that, with the press of a button, launch out of the handle. Now legal in, 38 states, I believe, for ownership and carry auto knives. This one, rather cool, I believe, with a skeletonized black, hard anodized aluminum handle, 6061 T6 aircraft grade aluminum. You'll notice on the handle this identifying mark. That is the maker's mark for Kershaw in-house design these days. Then we have our flag in the rear view mirror designating U.S. manufacturer. Let's kind of go over the nuts and bolts of this knife, shall we? First of all, we have a blade made of CPM 154 crucible particle metallurgy variant of 154 cm with great performance as a stainless knife steel, I must say. Blade is 2 3/4 inches in length. It's kind of an upswept, modified sheep's foot. But actually, in actual use, I find it very similar to the Benchmade 940's reverse Tanto profile, which is kind of an odd nomenclature. But yeah, just a super nice utility blade. The finish on this is what Kershaw is calling a black oxide blackwash, with blackwash trademarked. And it is a very coarse tumble after that black oxide coating. And frankly, most of the black oxide is removed. I actually had to look it up to see what finish it was, because I couldn't tell if it was blackwash or acid stonewash. But I will tell you when I sharpened it, and I will be sharpening, I think, all of these USA-made knife review knives, because it aids me in my ability to review them. But anyway, I noticed when I peeled the tape after sharpening that very little black came off with it, so I kind of knew it wasn't acid stonewash. Acid stonewash generally comes off a lot after masking. Not so much with blackwash, so that's what this is. The handle is 3 13/16 inches in length. Two-piece construction. The back spacer, although it looks like a separate piece, is not. It is integral to the handle. And yeah, I think if you look closely, you can see the seam down the middle. The locking mechanism is, of course, the button lock that also operates the automatic mechanism. It catches a milled radius in the blade in both the opened and closed positions, and it is released by the button from its closed or from its open position. Blade thickness is 120 thousandths, just shy of an eighth of an inch. A very high saber grind flat. And one thing that I'm going to remark about this blade positively is the grind. One of the reasons I like to sharpen these before review is that when you put a knife on a fixed angle sharpener, much is revealed about the grind geometry. And you'll notice on this knife, the width of that 17 degrees per side edge bevel, very consistent tip to hilt, which would indicate by triangular math that the thickness behind the edge is very consistent tip to hilt. That thickness seems to range between 21 and 22 thousandths of an inch. So even at a 17 degree edge bevel, not overly broad, it's pretty thin for its blade shape. And one thing I want to draw your attention to is look how nicely Kershaw executed the plunge grind and sharpening choil. The edge stays beautifully consistent all the way to the back. That's a positive, but in the sharpening realm, there is one negative. And I don't know, this is a sort of a holdover from the Sinkovich era. Why I need cutting edge almost behind the front of the handle, I don't know, and it does make it a challenge to sharpen. And I don't know if this will show up, but I did nick this corner with the sharpening stone on both sides. You really have to position your stone to your knife very at an odd angle to avoid hitting that corner. No reason for that. Just makes my life difficult. But not bad on this one. So nice grinds, nice cutting geometry, thin blade stock. Just a super nice utility blade. If I look where the tip is in relation to the line of the handle, it's right straight ahead. You know, if you bisected the handle longitudinally, you'd arrive right at the cutting edge. So it's very intuitive knowing where the tip of your knife blade is with the knife in hand. Nicely done. The pivot is going to be a hex female side and a Torx driven male side with a nice bronze anodized aluminum pivot collar. Just gives it a little pop of color in an otherwise sort of drab knife, but without being garish. I like that. The pocket clip kind of interesting on the Launch 11. It appears to be a powder coat rather than a DLC or a black oxide clip, so it's not going to wear gracefully. Not as gracefully as a parkerized clip would. Very slim in profile because it's got to find a slim flat on the handle. I was a little worried that the location of the clip would kind of cause a Sebenza 25 hotspot, but it really doesn't. If I'm back here in the finger groove, the end of the clip kind of falls between my index and middle finger just very nicely so as not to create a hotspot. And then if I'm in the overhand pinch grip, it kind of moves a finger so it falls between the middle and ring fingers. So great job on a difficult clip location, I think, from Kershaw. That clip is going to be not deep carry, which I prefer. I know I'm the only one. I actually like to have a little knife to grab hold of in my pocket. It is reversible, tip up, left or right. The thickness of the handle, which is 3 13/16 inches in length, thickness about 460 thousandths, so I guess you could call it, let's see, not quite 17, 15 30-seconds-ish. So more than 3/8, but not a half. Still makes it very thin in pocket, but nice and hand-filling. Pretty nice job. Let's see about grips. The pinky is barely hanging on in the saber grip, but doesn't feel like it's fallen off the edge. Then if you sort of come forward in that overhand pinch, plenty of room for the pinky. The hammer grip, probably not the knife for a hammer grip. It's more of a small EDC blade. Feels like it's kind of swimming. And the draw cut grip, very nice. Would make a pretty fine little paring knife as long as you didn't mind getting goo in the pivot. Then that vertical draw cut, pretty nice and comfortable. Can I move forward on it safely? Barely. Not really a forward finger choil, but this portion of the handle gives you a nice little anchor point. I'm kind of touching the back of the cutting edge, but probably work. All in all, pretty good in hand. You know, some of the launches I've kind of turned my nose up at because the handles are kind of over stylized and I didn't think super functional. Now, although the 11 here definitely has some bold design elements, it still works quite well as a handle and it doesn't look goofy. So I'm kind of digging it. Lockup on this one is dead rock solid. Blade centering is dead down the middle. And the action, superb and worth talking about this action. Now, I've got this set up for a left-hand carry. And it works rather well. Although the button is very low profile, you're not going to open that knife by mistake. Notice where that button sits. Barely peeking over the surface of the handle. So you got to be a little purposeful. Even as a lefty, operating a button on the back side of the knife, it's very tactile. I can tell the difference between the button and the pivot. Oop, I caught my background there. But I want to talk about the action. Some of you guys know, if you've been following the launch series, many of the early launches had an issue where when deploying the blade tang would bounce off the stop pin and then would sit in like this position, not locked open. And you really had to play this delicate balancing game. You had to tension the pivot so that the blade would deploy fully, but not with enough momentum to bounce off the stop pin. Now, the reason for that was because they just ran out of spring. The real spring tension ended about here, almost like you would see with a speed-safe assisted knife. Now, on later models, they've sort of solved that problem. Spring tension all the way to the stop pin, so they don't tend to bounce off like some of the early ones did. And I've seen this correction for a few launches in the series consecutively, so I think they got that beat. So let's see, I think price on these is just under $110. And guys, you think about that. Did we ever think, 5 years ago, we would see American-made automatic knives selling with fairly premium particle metallurgy blade steels for around $100? Protex are creeping up close to $200 for an entry-level one. Most Benchmades are well over $200. And we got an American-made Kershaw, a whole bunch of these launches for around $100. And their quality has consistently improved. We're getting what we expect in an American-made automatic knife. And the 11, frankly, is a really usable EDC now that we can EDC automatic knives in much of the United States. That's a good thing. So I got to tell you guys, I'm going to give you a little edge display here, but I must say the only reason I sharpened this knife in its new state is so I could tell you about grinding and geometry. The factory edge was pretty stellar. In fact, what I'm going to show you isn't a lot different than the cutting performance I got with this knife right out of the box. So great job, Kershaw. Definitely a better edge than 99% of the new Benchmades I've seen. Pretty much Spyderco caliber and factory sharpening. So bravo, Kershaw. And I didn't have any kind of symmetry issues with this edge. It was just good. Didn't take long to clean right up to 17 degrees per side. It was probably about 18 per side from the factory. Very, very solid effort. I'm pretty pleased with that, especially for the money. Now, where can you buy this knife? Well, you guys know that this is a Knives Ship Free featured video, and some of you are aware, if you've been following the channel closely, that I'm in the affiliate program with Knives Ship Free. So in the description of this video, I'm going to place a link to the Launch 11, but it's my affiliate link. So if you buy one, or if you buy anything at Knives Ship Free after using that link to get to their site, there will be a little money flowing to the channel. Regardless of whether I like the knife or I don't like the knife, if you guys do and you buy it, it helps my channel a little bit. And I'm happy to partner with Knives Ship Free in that regard, because it is the best place to buy knives, period. And I'm quite pleased to be working with them on the US Made Knife Review series. The Launch 11, I think, definitely worth your time. And, the neat thing about the Launch series is you can collect them all. And they're not super high dollars, so you can do it on a budget. The 11's going to be the one that's in your pocket, though, I think. That, my friends, is going to be all for this one. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Remember, the word is sharp. Hope you're having a great evening. Talk to you soon.